Ever had one of those days where everything just clicks? You're sharp, energetic, and it feels like your brain is working in overdrive, but in a good way. You read a news article, and bam, you get it instantly. Or maybe you're plowing through that book you've been meaning to read, and it just seems easier to focus. Conversations with your boss. No problem. You understand everything they're throwing at you, and school or work tasks feel effortless. It's like your brain is in top gear, and everything feels crisp, clear, and on point. But then, there are those days. You know what I mean? The days where your brain feels like it's moving through molasses. You're tired, everything feels fuzzy, and no matter how hard you try, you just can't seem to focus on anything. Even basic tasks feel like a huge mental lift. You might even need to focus, but your brain is just not having it. It's like your mental energy is at an all-time low, and you have no idea why. Now here's the weird part. It's not always about how much you've done. Some days you're exhausted, but when you think back, you didn't really do anything out of the ordinary. You didn't push yourself too hard at work or school, and physically you're fine. Yet you're completely drained. And on the flip side, there are days when you've been hustling non-stop, working, traveling, working out. And for some reason, you still feel energized and super focused. So what's going on? Why do we feel tired or alert on days that don't really seem to match what we've been doing? The truth is, it's not always about how much work you've done that explains why you're so tired or mentally out of it. There are actually two sneaky habits we often fall into that mess with our energy levels, leaving us either feeling chronically drained or suddenly hit with fatigue. These behaviors are so simple, so common, that you're probably doing them without realizing it. But before we dive into those habits, let's talk a little bit about how the brain works from a neurobiological perspective. You see, just like the rest of your body, your brain has built-in mechanisms to regulate itself. This is something that happens in many systems in the body. It's called self-regulation, or in more scientific terms, inhibitory feedback loops. You don't need to remember that name, but the idea is that the brain has ways to keep itself in check. And one of the things it regulates is your alertness, your ability to stay sharp and focused. In Buddhist philosophy, this self-regulation mirrors the idea of balance. Just as mindfulness teaches us to find harmony in our thoughts and actions, the brain is constantly working to maintain a state of equilibrium. Neurobiologically, it's fascinating how this aligns with the Buddhist concept of non-attachment, not holding on too tightly to any state, whether it's high energy or fatigue, because both are transient. Understanding how the brain self-regulates can help us cultivate more compassion for ourselves on those tough days and more mindfulness on the good ones. After all, the ebb and flow of mental energy is just like the impermanence we learn about in Buddhist teachings. It comes and goes. So to break it down simply, every time you're engaging in any kind of cognitive task, whether it's studying, solving problems, dealing with emotions, having conversations, or even making those dreaded phone calls, your brain cells are working hard. And while they're active, it's like they're leaving behind a little bit of residue in the form of chemical byproducts. Now, these aren't necessarily bad, but as you go through your day and your brain stays busy, these substances start to build up. And by the time night rolls around, this accumulation signals to your brain, hey, it's time to rest. In essence, your brain is producing chemicals throughout the day that slowly inhibit its activity. This is what helps you wind down and feel sleepy at night. The more mentally active you are, the more of these substances build up, leading to that sense of fatigue as the day goes on. That's why, by the time evening hits, most of us start feeling tired, and eventually, we sleep. Before we dive into today's topic, I just wanted to quickly mention that I've left a list of 4 incredible books in the description below. These are personal favorites that have really helped me on my journey of personal development, and I think they'll be a great complement to what we're discussing today. Whether it's boosting your mental clarity, finding balance, or just leveling up your overall mindset, these books can provide some real insights. So, be sure to check them out after the video. Here's where it gets interesting. During sleep, especially in the deep stages, your brain undergoes a literal cleaning process. The cerebrospinal fluid in your central nervous system helps wash away all those substances that accumulated in your brain during the day. This brain wash is crucial because it helps you wake up refreshed and ready to tackle the next day. Now, here's the catch. There are two sneaky habits many of us fall into that mess with this whole system. And these behaviors can prevent your brain from properly signaling when it's time to rest, leaving you feeling chronically fatigued. It's almost like these habits are putting up a block, stopping those helpful chemicals from doing their job. Think about it like this. When you're at the gym and doing a tough workout, as you push through reps, your muscles start to burn. That burn is your body's way of signaling that it's time to slow down, that your muscles need a break. It's protective. If you didn't feel that fatigue, you might push yourself too far and end up injuring yourself. The brain works in a similar way. The buildup of substances throughout the day is a signal that it's time to rest. But when you engage in certain behaviors, your brain's natural fatigue signal gets messed up, and you keep going when you should be resting. One of the main culprits? Excessive caffeine, and this is where things get a bit tricky. Caffeine is so widely used that it's easy to overlook how it can mess with your brain's natural rhythms. It's super common to see people relying on caffeine to keep themselves going throughout the day. You're tired, so you grab another coffee or energy drink to stay alert. But then, when night comes, your brain is too wired to sleep properly. You wake up exhausted the next day, reach for more caffeine, and the cycle continues. This constant overstimulation from caffeine actually blocks your brain's natural signals, leaving you feeling even more fatigued in the long run. From a neurobiological perspective, caffeine interferes with adenosine, a neurotransmitter that builds up throughout the day to create that feeling of sleepiness. And here's the kicker. This whole process is closely tied to Buddhist philosophy. In Buddhism, there's a teaching about the importance of balance and awareness in our actions. By constantly consuming caffeine to override our brain's natural signals, we're resisting that balance. We're ignoring our body's need for rest, which goes against the very essence of mindfulness. Instead of being present with how we feel, we're masking it, chasing short-term relief at the expense of long-term well-being. In a way, this is like the Buddhist concept of attachment, clinging to something, in this case, alertness, even when it's not serving us. By understanding how our brain naturally works and embracing the ebb and flow of energy throughout the day, we can practice more mindfulness, both in terms of our physical health and our mental well-being. So next time you're tempted to reach for that extra coffee, pause and consider, is this helping me find balance, or am I just feeding a cycle that's keeping me stuck? It's funny, isn't it? When you tell someone that cutting down on caffeine will help them feel more rested, their first reaction is often, "But I'm already tired. How can I stop drinking coffee?" It feels like a catch-22, right? You're tired, so you reach for caffeine, but caffeine is what's actually keeping you in this cycle of exhaustion. Here's the thing. It's really important to take a closer look at how much caffeine you're consuming. You might think it's helping, but in the long run, it's messing with your brain's natural rhythms and ability to rest. Now, let's talk about the second behavior that's probably keeping you tired: overstimulation. We live in this crazy world where we're bombarded with notifications, news, social media updates, and constant digital chatter. You know that feeling, right? Where your brain is always in overdrive, like you're trying to catch up with everything. It's this endless cycle of needing to check Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, news apps, WhatsApp, Telegram. The list goes on. It's like a mental treadmill where you're constantly running but never getting anywhere. This overstimulation kicks your brain's alertness mechanisms into high gear, and before you know it, you're stuck in a loop that's almost compulsive. You feel the need to check, refresh, scroll, repeat. It's exhausting. And guess what? This behavior directly impacts your sleep, your eating habits, and even your motivation to exercise or spend time with people in real life. You end up in this state of hyperstimulation, constantly chasing dopamine hits from your phone, but in reality it's draining your energy. So here's what you need to do. First, keep an eye on your caffeine intake. Seriously, it's such a simple change, but it makes a big difference. Second, practice some digital hygiene. Step back from the constant stream of online content. Take a break from social media, even if it's just for a little while each day. I know it feels like you might miss out, but trust me, nothing life-changing is happening in your feed that can't wait. In fact, taking a break will probably improve the quality of your work, your focus, and even your ability to enjoy the content you engage with later. And the best part, over time, you'll realize that stepping back doesn't just help you manage stress. It actually gives you back some of the energy and focus you've been missing. It's all about finding balance. Just like in Buddhist philosophy, where we learn to avoid extremes and cultivate mindfulness, this is about learning to recognize when your brain needs a break. By stepping away from the constant noise, you create space for stillness, clarity, and ultimately, better mental and physical well-being. So next time you catch yourself reaching for another cup of coffee or endlessly scrolling through your phone, pause for a second. Ask yourself, is this really serving me right now, or am I just feeding into habits that keep me stuck? All right, folks, that's a wrap. If you made it all the way here, first off, thank you so much for sticking around. We've covered a lot today. From understanding how caffeine and overstimulation mess with your brain's natural rhythms, to some practical steps you can take to feel more energized and balanced. Remember, it's all about finding that balance, just like in Buddhist philosophy, knowing when to step back and allow your mind and body the rest they deserve. Now, before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if you found it helpful. It really helps the channel grow. And hey, why not share this with a friend who could use a little more peace and clarity in their life too? And lastly, I love hearing from you. So drop a comment below. I read and respond to every single one, and it's a great way for us to keep the conversation going. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.